Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on Association Rule Mining. Myself, Dr. Sminu Isuddin, Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology. So let's start our algorithm for mining different type of patterns. So what do you mean by a pattern? Let me explain that with the help of an example. Suppose you are going to a supermarket. You are going to a supermarket to buy items. Now we can see that people coming there buying items. Suppose you note down all those things in a tabular form as shown in the table here. Say the first row represent the transaction made by the first customer. So you are noting down the transaction number and the item bought by the customer. Say the first customer bought bread and milk. The second one bought bread, diaper, beer, X. Like that you are noting down all the transactions made by the people coming to a supermarket. So if you note down like this, now we can see that as we proceed, maybe after 1 or 2 years, if you started noting down like this, you can find that you will get a huge amount of data. And actually these type of transactions, we'll call it as a market basket transactions. In a market basket transaction, we'll have the transaction ID and the items bought by the customers. Now if you note down like this, as I said, you can find that you will get a huge amount of data. So in early 90s or somewhere towards late 80s, a group of people from IBM, they developed a software. They developed a software where they try to explore. They found that once you go through these detail, we can find out some patterns. We can find out some patterns from these type of transactions. Okay, so they call them there actually comes the trend of finding this type of association rule mining. Okay, so for example, if you just look at this, maybe I can find that those who buy bread are also buying milk. There's a chance that the people who buy bread will also buy milk. Or if a person buy a diaper, maybe he also buy something else. So such type of patterns we can often find. Now this analyzing this pattern having lot of practical applications. For example, if we can identify these type of patterns, then it is having a lot of commercial advantages. I could have given some type of discount opportunity, that is those who buy maybe bread and milk will also have some discount for X. Or in another way, maybe I can place the items, the frequently purchased items in nearby racks, or I can place this bread and this in nearby rack, so that people who come to buy bread may have a tendency to buy egg also. So these type of patterns, we'll call it as a frequent pattern. Or a frequent pattern is a pattern that occurs frequently in a data set. So this kind of associations are present in many type of data. So what we can say now is, if we are given millions of transactions like this, can we find out some valid association rule from this? It is applicable for many other areas also. For example, instead of the supermarket type of grocery items, if I am getting some other transaction detail related to maybe purchasing a PC, so I will be able to can I find out some subsequent purchase pattern of a person. That is, if a particular person purchases a PC, then what is the chance that he may purchase a printer also. So such type of association rule I can find out. It's having lot of applications. Some are listed here: market data analysis, cross marketing, sale campaign analysis, web log analysis, data DNA sequence analysis, and many other areas. Now let us see the steps to find this. The first step towards discovering these type of association rule is to detect something called a frequent item set. Now before going to frequent item set, let me define something. An item set means it is a collection of one or more items. For example, if you consider the transaction table given in the right side, an item set means a collection of one or more items. For example, if I can consider set A, B, D as an item set, and it is called a k item set if the item set consists of k items, where you can set the value of k. And the next term is a support count. Support count means it is the frequency of occurrence of an item set. For example, in this transaction table, the item set AD occurs 3 times. And the support means it is the fraction of the transaction that contain the item set. That is, how many transactions contain this particular item set. So 3 out of 5 transaction contains this. So that is the support of the item set AD. And frequent item set is an item set whose support is greater than or equal to some minimum support threshold which we can fix. So for example, if I consider the previous example which we quoted, now suppose I want to find out which is the most popular item. In the previous example, whether bread and milk is the most popular item, the item which is purchased by most of the people, frequently purchased item, then actually I can find out, consider this. Maybe I can consider frequent item set as the item set which is most popularly considered in a purchased in a market transaction database. So let's define what is an association rule. An association rule, it is of the form X associated to Y. For example, the rule of the form, implication of the form X associated to Y. So it is having 2 parts. It is having a left hand item set and a right hand item set. Here X and Y, they are item sets. So it is having a left hand item set and a right hand item set. And any association rule is valid if 2 conditions are satisfied. First condition is that both this X and Y has to be a frequent item set. That is, their support count should be greater than the minimum value support count we set. So that is the first condition. Both these item sets X and Y, there should be a frequent item set. And that is actually the support condition. And the next condition is that we'll call it as a confidence condition, which means the second condition states that in addition to these X and Y being frequent, the second condition states that in most of the transactions that X appear, Y should also appear. That is, in most of the transaction where X appear, Y should also appear. Now that is the second condition, that is a confidence condition. So the support condition measures the fraction of transaction that both X and Y contain, and the confidence condition measures how often item Y appear in the transaction that contain item X. An example is shown here. Suppose I consider an association rule A associated with D. Then to find the support value, we have to find the number of transaction where both A and Y has divided by total number of transactions. So in the from the transaction table, it is here that A and D, they together comes in 3 records, 3 cases. That is, A and D, they together come in transaction ID 10, transaction ID 20 and transaction ID 30. So 3 out of 5, that is the support value, or 0.6 is the support value. Now to find the confidence value, I have to find in how many cases when A and D appear together, and that is in how many transactions where A appear, I can find A and D together. So the total number of cases when both A and D together comes, as I said before, is 3, that is in transaction 1, transaction 2, transaction 3, or transaction 10, 20 and 30. So the count is 3 divided by total number of cases where A alone I can find, that is also 3. So I'll get by 3 equal to 1 or 100% confident. Now the rule is said to be an association rule. Then the value, these two values should be greater than a predefined minimum support and minimum confident value. Let's see some methods for mining these frequent patterns. The downward closure property of frequent pattern states that any subset of frequent item set must be a frequent. That is, if for example, if a set consists of collar, diaper and nuts, if we consider that, then if that set is frequent, definitely its subset collar, diaper, which is a subset of the initial set collar, diaper, nuts, that is also a frequent. So every transaction containing collar, diaper, nut can also contain the collar, diaper subset. Now let us see some of the major methods for mining these scalable methods for mining these patterns. Let's start with the first one, a priori method. A priori is actually a seminal paper or a seminal algorithm proposed by R. Agarwal and R. Srikanth in 1994 for mining frequent item sets from Boolean association rules. So here how a priori works is like it employs something like an iterative approach, also known as a level-wise search, where k size item sets are used to explore k+1 size item sets. So how it works is, first the set of frequent one item set are found by scanning the database and collecting these from these item sets, from these item set it generates the next category, that is L2. That is, first of all it scans the database to find frequent one item set, this item set of size 1, and collecting those items set that satisfy the minimum support. That it scans the database to collect item sets of size 1 satisfying that minimum support count property. Now from this resultant set, suppose I denote by L1, from this L1 it will generate item set of size L2. That is, it will generate frequent 2 item set of size 2. From this 2 item set it will generate 3 item set or L3, and it will go until it finds the required k size. So for every scan, that is for every iteration it need to scan the whole database. So to improve this property, that is the need to make a full scan for every iteration, it uses something called an a priori property. So the a priori property, it states that if there is any item set which is infrequent, then its superset cannot be generated, need not be generated or tested. That is, suppose if you have an item set that does not satisfy the minimum support property, that is the minimum support threshold value, then there is suppose if I add one more item, say A, to this item set, that resultant one will never be a frequent one. That is, or therefore A union, suppose the initial set if I represent by I, that I union A is never frequent. So no need to explore that combination. Working of an a priori algorithm is shown here with an example. Suppose you consider a database of size 4 transactions, transaction ID 10, 20, 30 and 40, and if you set the minimum support count as 2, then during the first iteration it will try to generate a table with item set 1 or one item set. So we'll consider item set A, B, C, D and E, and we'll try to find the support count. Support count represents the number of occurrence of that item set in the original database. So item A is occurring two cases in two transactions, for transaction A and transaction ID 10 and transaction ID 30. Item B is occurring in three transactions, that is in transaction 20, then in transaction 30 and transaction 40. Like that, I'll try to find out occurrence or the support value of every item set. And since I set the minimum support count value as 2, I can discard item set D because it is occurring only in one case. So after the first scan of the database, we'll get a table with 4 entries A, B, C and E. Now from this one item set, we'll try to generate two item set. So to generate two item set, we'll consider the combinations among this. We'll consider all possible combinations, and we'll try to find out the support count of every item set. So the support count of AB is only 1, support count of AC is 2. Like that, we'll try to find out the support count of all combinations. And again, we can discard item set AB and AE as shown in the table C2 because they are occurring, their support value is only 1. So after the next iteration, I'll get a table with as shown in L2. So in L2, I can find only 4 items. I can find 4 entries of size 2: AC, BC, BE and CE. Now from this, try to generate C3 considering the combinations, and again I'll try to pick up the elements or item set with minimum support count 2. Like this, an a priori algorithm works. The same thing written as a pseudocode is shown in this slide. Now we'll see how this a priori property is used in the algorithm. Now to understand this, let us look at an example. Let us look at how this LK minus 1 set, capital LK minus 1, is used to find the set LK, capital LK, for value of k is greater than or equal to 2. It mainly consists of two steps, join and prune. So first of all, let us consider join. To find LK, capital LK, a set of candidates K item set is generated by joining capital LK minus 1 with itself. This set of candidates, suppose we denote by capital letter CK. Let L1 and L2, that is small letter L1 and L2, be item set in capital letter LK minus 1. Now just to familiarize the notation, small letter Lij refers to the jth item in small letter Li. That is, for example, if I write Lik minus 1, it refers to the second to the last item in L1. So by this convention, this a priori assumes that items within a transaction or the item set are sorted in the lexicographical order. So we can assume that Li1 is less than Li2, which is less than Li3, etc., less than Lik minus 1. So the join between capital letter Lk minus 1 to itself, capital letter Lk minus 1, that join between that is performed where the members from Lk minus 1 are joined if their first k minus 1 items are common. I repeat, the join within capital Lk minus 1 elements join will happen only if the first k minus 1 items are common. That is, members, if I consider members L1 and L2, small letter L1 and L2 of Lk minus 1, capital letter Lk minus 1, they are joined if L1 1 equal to L2 1 and L1 2 equal to L2 2, etc. The second last element L1 L1 k minus 1 equal to L2 k minus 1 and the last element L1 k minus 1 less than L2 k minus 1, since we sorted in the order in the ascending order, and we assume that there is no duplicates. So the resultant item set formed by joining L1 and L2, that is actually L1 1, L1 2, L1 3, etc. L1 k minus 1, comma L1 k minus L1 L2 k minus 1. So that is actually happening in the first step, that is join. Now in the second step, that is in the prune step, suppose Ck is a superset of Lk, capital Lk, that is members may or may not be frequent, but all of the frequent k items are included in Ck. Okay, so a scan to the database, we perform a scan in the database to determine the count of each candidates in Ck. That would result in finding Lk, capital Lk. Okay, so the Ck will be very huge. The elements in the Ck will be very huge, and we need a very high computation. So to reduce the size of Ck, this a priori property is used. Now how it is used is, any k minus 1 item set that is not frequent cannot be a subset of the frequent k item set. Hence, if any k minus 1 subset of a candidate k item set is not found in capital Lk minus 1, then the candidate cannot be found either in the other set. So we can remove that from Ck. Like that, we can reduce the size of Ck to a smaller one, which will generate Lk. Now to understand that, a given example is given there. Suppose L3, set L3 consists of elements A, B, C, A, B, D, A, C, D, A, C, E and B, C, D. Now after performing join, that is L3 into L3, we have to form sets of size 4. From L3 will generate L4. The rule, according to the prune join rule, we can combine only if the first k minus 1 elements are same. That is, here if I consider the value of k as 3, then I have to consider the cases where the first two characters are same. That is A, B. So here I can find A, B, C and A, B, D. In both the cases, A, B is common. So we can combine A, B, C and A, B, D to form A, B, C, D. Similarly, I can consider A, C, D and A, C, E to form A, C, D. So that is what happening in joining. Now for pruning, so now we got two set, that is A, B, C and A, B, D. A, B, C, D and A, C, D, E. But according to the prune rule, we can remove A, C, D, E, because A, D, E, from A, C, E since A, D, E is not present in set L3, in capital L3, since A, D, E is not present, I can remove A, C, D, E. Okay, so which means in set 4 I'll get only A, B, C, D. This self-join and pruning we can implement in database using these following SQL statements. So to perform self-join, Actually, I can write a statement like insert into CK, where CK is a table, where I can select from the table, select item P dot item 1, P dot item 2, etc. P dot item K minus 1, comma Q dot item K minus 1 from your sets LK minus 1 and LK minus 1 renamed as P and LK minus 1 renamed as Q, and I can perform the where I can write the where condition as P item 1 equal to Q item 1, matching between L1 L11 and L21. Similarly, P item 2 equal to Q item 2, etc. P item K minus 1 equals Q item K minus 1. So the first K minus 2 items are matching, and the last one, the P item K minus 1 is less than Q item K minus 1. Now, similarly, we can perform pruning also with the help of these two for loops. The association rules can be generated as given in the slide. To find the confidence of any relation, any association A to B, we can use the confidence equation given by the support count of A union B divided by support count of A, and all association rules can be generated like given in the steps here. That is, find out for every frequent item set L, generate all non-empty subsets of L. For every frequent item set L, generate all non-empty subset of L, and for every non-empty subsets S of L, you can generate the rule as S is associated with the set L minus S, provided the support count of L divided by support count of S is greater than the minimum threshold confidence value. An example to generate the association rules with the minimum confidence value as 75% is given in the slide. To further improve the efficiency of a priori based mining method, we can use a hash based technique to reduce the size of the candidate K item sets in the sets capital CK for all K greater than 1. For example, when scanning each transaction in the database to generate the frequent 1 item set capital L1, we can generate all of the 2 item set for each transaction, and maybe we can hash them into different buckets of the hash table, and we can increase the corresponding bucket count. So a 2 item set whose corresponding bucket count, if it is going beyond the if it is greater than the minimum threshold we set, definitely it will be frequent. So if it is less than the threshold we set, which means it is not frequent, and we can remove that from the candidate set. So such a hash based technique can definitely reduce the number of candidate item sets generated. Another method to improve the efficiency is called a transaction reduction, which is aiming at reducing the number of transactions scanned in future iterations. A transaction that does not contain any frequent K item set cannot contain any frequent K plus 1 item sets. Therefore, such a transaction can be marked or may be removed from further consideration, because subsequent scans of the database for J item set for all J greater than K will not require it. A partitioning technique that requires just 2 database scan to mine the frequent item set can also be used. So this method consists of 2 phases. In the phase 1, the algorithm subdivides the transactions into n non-overlapping transactions. If the minimum support threshold for a transaction is suppose it is set as a minimum value, then the minimum support count for a partition is the minimum support threshold set. Suppose it is m min, then min into the number of transactions in that partition. For each partition, all frequent item sets within the partition are found. and these are referred to as the local frequent item sets. And the procedure employs a special data structure that for each item set, it records the transaction ID of the transaction containing the item set. So this allows the system to find all the local frequent k item sets for the value of k ranging from 1, 2, 3, etc. In just 2 scan of the database. So a local frequent item set may be, or it can may or may not be frequent with respect to the entire database. So any item set that is potentially frequent with respect to D must occur as a frequent item set in at least one of these partitions. Therefore, all local frequent item sets are candidate item sets with respect to the original set D. So the collection of these frequent item set from all partitions forms the global item set. So in the phase 2, a second scan in the database is conducted, in which with the aim of identifying this global frequent item sets. The partition method explained in the previous slide is shown as a diagram here. Next method to improve the efficiency is sampling, where you pick a random sample from the original data and you search frequent patterns only within the data. The next method is dynamic item set counting. So in dynamic item set counting, it divides it partitions the whole database into blocks, and it marks and it is marked as some starting point or start points. And in this particular type, new candidate data items item set are added only at the starting point, unlike in a priori method, which determines the new data candidate items only immediately before each complete database scan. The next method to identify frequent pattern is FD growth, or frequent pattern growth. So the drawback of this a priori method is that it generates a huge number of candidate sets, and we need to repeatedly scan the database and check a large set of candidates by pattern matching. So we are trying to find out another method which can reduce this, or which can minimizes the complete set of this frequent item sets generation without candidate without this candidate set generation. So the next method is frequent pattern growth method, or simply FP growth, and this particular method adopts a divide and conquer strategy. So here first it compresses the database representing the frequent item into a frequent pattern tree, or an FP tree, and at the same time it retains the item set association information also. Then it divides the compressed database into a set of conditional databases where each associated where these conditional databases are associated with one frequent item or pattern fragment, and mines each such database separately. This FD growth algorithm can be explained with the help of an example given here. Now suppose you consider a database with say 9 transactions. Now the first step is you scan the database and derive the all frequent one item sets. Suppose we assume the minimum support count is 2, then you have to identify all the items with the minimum support count 2 and you sort them in the descending order. So that is the first step. So we can find that item set 2 support count is 7, then item set 1 with a support count 6, then item set 3 again with item support count 6, then we have item set 4 and 5 with support count 2. Next we have to create a FP tree. Now the tree is constructed like this. You create the root of the tree and you label it as null. You scan the database for the second time, because already we scanned the database to generate a one item set, frequent one item set. Now you scan the database for the second time. Each item, the items in each transaction, they are processed in the order, in the predefined order, in the sorted order we considered, and a branch is created for each transaction. For example, if you scan the first transaction T100 with items I1, I2, I5, which contains three items I1, I2, I5, then this will lead to the construction of first branch of the tree with three nodes I2 1, I1 1 and I5 1, where I2 is linked as a child to the root and I1 is linked to I2 and I5 is linked to I1. The second transaction T200 contains items I2 and I4 in the order, in the L order, so which will result in a branch where I2 is linked to the root, I4 is linked to I2. Okay, so therefore we increment the count of I2 node by 1 and create a new node I4 1, which is linked to the child of I2. So in general, when considering the branch to be added for a transaction, the count of each node along a common prefix is incremented, and the node for the item following the prefix are created and linked accordingly. So again, to perform the traversal, an item header table is built so that each item points to its occurrence in the tree via maybe something like using a node link. The generated FP tree is shown here. The FP tree is mined as follows. You start from each frequent pattern length L. Then you construct its conditional pattern base, that is, which consists of the set of prefix patterns in this FP tree co-occurring with the suffix pattern. So you construct its conditional FP tree and perform mining recursively on such a tree. So the pattern growth is achieved by the concatenation of the suffix pattern with the frequent pattern generated from the conditional FP tree. It will be clear once you see the example. So from the example, we first consider I5, which is the last item in L. So we consider the last item in L, which is I5. So I5 occurs in two branches in the FP tree. So the path formed by these branches, maybe they are I2, I1, I5 and I2, I1, I3, I5. Therefore, considering I5 as a suffix, its corresponding two prefix paths are I2, I1 and I2, I1, I3. They form this form its conditional pattern base. Its conditional FP tree contains only a single path I2, I1 and I3. It's not added because its support count is 1, which is less than the minimum support count, which we considered as 2. So a single path generates all combinations of the frequent patterns, that is I2, I5, I1, I5, I2, I1, I5. Similarly, other items I4, I3, I1 are considered and their frequent patterns are generated. As we consider some of the frequent mining methods, let us now consider some additional application requirements, which include multi-level association rule, mining multi-level association rules, multi-dimensional associational rules, and quantitative associational rules in different transactions or relational databases. For many applications, it is very difficult to find strong association rules among data at the low level or in the preventive level. So we need some strong association discovered at higher levels of abstraction that may represent some little more knowledge which involves some common sense. So now we will consider one such thing, that is multi-level association rule. Okay, so here you try to maintain a concept level hierarchy which by using a sequence of mappings from a set of low level concept to a higher level concept. A concept level hierarchy of the items in the table given in the top is represented in the bottom. So in the figure we can find there are 5 levels from level 0 to level 4. So where the root is at level 0. So here at level 1 include all the items like computer, software, printer, camera, etc. And in level 2 include laptop computer, desktop computer, office software, antivirus software, etc. And in level 3 it includes IBM desktop computer, Microsoft Office software, etc. And level 4 is the most specific abstraction level of this maybe the hierarchy. So if you make a general hierarchy like this, then in the next method we will or in the multi-level association rule, we try to find out some patterns by generating a concept level hierarchy from this basic data. So multi-level association rules. So these are the association rules generated from mining data at multiple levels of abstraction. So here in multi-level abstraction association rule, the association rule can be mined effectively using concept hierarchy under a particular support confidence framework. So here something like a top level strategy is employed, where counts are accumulated for the calculation of the frequent item set at each concept level, starting at the concept level 1 and working downward in the hierarchy towards the more specific concept levels until no more frequent item sets can be generated. It can be done in different ways. The first one is uniform minimum support for all levels. So in this method, same support threshold is set to mine all the levels, and this type of methods, this type of searching, it avoids examining items containing those ancestors who don't have the minimum support value. Now the drawback of this particular method is it is unlikely that the items at the lower level of abstraction will occur as frequently as those at the higher level. So if the minimum support threshold is too high, it could miss some meaningful association occurring at the lower levels. And if the threshold is set too low, it may generate many uninteresting associations occurring at the higher level. Okay, so that is some of the disadvantage of this uniform minimum support for all method. And the second method, that is using reduced minimum support at all lower levels. So in this method, each level of abstraction has its own minimum support threshold. So the deeper the level of abstraction, the smaller the corresponding threshold is. The major drawback of any of these mining multi-level association rule is that it generates many redundant rules. Across multiple levels of abstraction, because due to this ancestor relationship among them. For example, if you consider a laptop computer, it is the ancestor of IBM laptop computer node based on the hierarchy given in the previous diagram, given in the previous slides. So that is one of the major drawback of this multi-level association rule. It generates redundant rules. So far we have considered predicates with which involves only or a single predicate, that is only one predicate. For example, here we consider bias associated to the rule by a predicate bias. So this is an example for a single predicate association rule, or it's also called single dimensional or intradimensional association rule, where single distinct predicates with multiple occurrences are considered. Now, in some cases, we have to deal with multiple predicates. So, for example, in the second one, if you consider age and occupation associated with bias. So, here we can find that there are more than one predicate coming in the left hand side. So association rules that involve two or more dimensions or predicates can be referred to as multi-dimensional association rules. And in this example, it contains three predicates: age, occupation and bias, each of which occurs only once in the rule. Hence we say that there is no repeated predicates. So the multi-dimensional association rules with no repeated predicates are called interdimensional association rules. We can also mine multiple or multi-dimensional association rules with repeated predicates which contain multiple occurrences of some predicates. For example, the last one considered age and bias associated with bias. So here this bias is coming more than once. So these rules are called hybrid dimensional association rules, where some of the predicates are getting repeated. This database attributes, they can be categorical or quantitative. So categorical attributes have a finite number of possible values with no ordering among these values. Example, occupation, color, etc. Now categorical attributes are also called nominal attributes. The other set, that is qualitative attributes, they are numeric and have an implicit ordering among themselves. So the techniques for mining multidimensional association rule can be categorized into two basic approaches regarding how you treat these quantitative attributes. So the first approach, where these quantitative attributes are discretized using predefined concept hierarchies. So that the discretized numerical attributes within some interval labels are then treated as categorical values, and this type of mining is referred to as static discretization of quantitative attributes. Then the second approach, quantitative attributes are discretized into some clusters or into bins based on the distribution of the data. So this type of method, we'll call it as dynamic quantitative association rules. This transformed multidimensional data can be used to construct something called a data cube. So this data cubes are actually used for mining this multidimensional association rules. They store information in form of aggregates in this multi-dimensional space, and which is needed to compute the support and confidence value to find the multi-dimensional association rule. And here the cells of the n-dimensional cuboid can be used to store the support count of the corresponding rule, or the corresponding the n predicate set. And actually we can use a priori property to prune this data space. So if a given k predicate set has a support which does not satisfy the minimum support, then further exploration for that set we can avoid, or that can be terminated. This is because more specialized version of the k item set will have support not greater than the minimum support value, and therefore they will not satisfy the minimum support count. Quantitative association rules are multidimensional association rules in which numeric attributes are dynamically discretized during the mining process so that they satisfy some minimum support criteria. Now, if it involves if in a two-dimensional quantitative association rules, or they are the rules which contain two quantitative dimensions. For example, here age and income. So it is a quantitative. They contain two quantitative dimensions. Now, to find these type of rules, we can use a method called association rule clustering system. So association rule clustering system actually maps the pair of this quantitative attribute into a 2D grid that satisfy some given categorical attribute conditions, and the details of that is given in the next slide. The first step is to divide the attributes into different bins, this process is called binning. Mainly three common binning strategies are used: equal width binning, where the interval size of each bin is same; then equal frequency binning, where each bin has approximately the same number of tuples assigned to it; then clustering based binning, where clustering is performed on this quantitative attribute to group this neighboring points. Now, after performing this, the next step is to find the frequent predicate sets. So once this 2D array containing a count distribution for each category set, then it can be scanned to find the frequent predicate sets. That is, those sets which satisfy minimum support, and this strong association rule can be used to generate these predicate rules. After finding the strong association rule, then they are mapped to a 2D grid. So as shown in the figure, we generate a 2D grid for this 2D quantitative association rule predicting the condition BICE on the right hand side. So here actually given the quantitative attribute age and income. So the 4x corresponding to this rules are maybe what listed here: the age with x34 and income in the range 31 to 40, then age 35 and income 31 to 40, age 34 and income 41 to 50, and age 35 and income in the range 41 to 50. So the algorithm then employs a searching technique. It scans the grid, searching for rectangular clusters of rules. So in this way, the bins of the quantitative attribute occurring within a cluster rule may be further combined, and hence we can further discretize the attribute. And after doing that, smoothing techniques are performed to remove noise and outliers. In many practical applications, it may happen that once this, so as I said, the support and confidence measures are in many cases it may be insufficient to filter this uninteresting association rules. So to tackle these weakness, a correlation measure can be used to augment this support confidence framework for association rules. So this often lead to this correlation rules. Lift is a simple correlation measure. It finds the occurrence of an item set A. For example, it finds the occurrence of the item set A which is independent of the occurrence of the item set B. It says that the occurrence of item set A is independent of occurrence of item set B if probability of A union B equals probability of A into probability of B. Or in otherwise, the item set A and B are dependent and they are correlated. Okay, so the definition can be, we can extend this type of definition, we can extend to multiple, or we can extend to more than two item sets also. Or the lift between occurrence of A and B can be computed as lift of AB equals probability of A union B by probability of A into probability of B. And the value of the lift is less than 1, then we can tell that A is negatively correlated to B. And if it is greater than 1, then A and B are positively correlated. And if it is equal to 1, then we can say that A and B are independent. An example to find the lift of two set is given here. The second method to measure the correlation between the attribute is chi-square measure. So the chi-square value, it takes the square difference between the observed and the expected value of a slot, say AB, from the table, divided by the expected value, and this amount is summed for all the slots in the table. So a data mining process may find thousands of rules. Suppose you are given a data, it can find thousands of rules, most of which may not be related or may not be of much interest, or it may be uninteresting to the users. So it's always the mining process should be an interactive process where the user can direct or user can give some information to the method, and or maybe a good heuristic can be used to simplify the size of the data generated. So in this strategy, that is in the constraint based mining, or in the constraint based mining method, it adopts some strategy. It use a good heuristic method by which the user can specify their intuitions or expectations as constraint to reduce the size of the search space. The constraints can be included as maybe a knowledge type constraint, which specify the type of the knowledge to be mined, such as associations or correlations. Then data constraint, which specify the type or the task related data. Then dimension or level constraints, which specify the desired dimension or attributes of the data, or levels of this concept hierarchies to be to use to mine. Then interestingness constraints that specify the threshold on the statistical measure of the rule of the interest, such as the support, confidence and correlation. Then rule constraint, and they specify the form of rules to be mined. So such constraint can be expressed something like a meta rules, as the maximum or the minimum number of predictions that can occur in a rule antecedent or consequent, or as relationship among the attributes, or maybe attribute values. So one method is meta rule guided mining. So what is a meta rule, or how they are useful? Meta rules allow user to specify the syntactic form of rules that they are interested in mining. So the rule forms can be used as constraint to improve the efficiency of the mining process. So this meta rule can be based on some experience or some analysis or expectations or intuitions regarding the data. Let us see this with an example. Suppose we have access to a database describing customers such as customer age, address, credit rating, etc. A list of transactions, and suppose we want to find association between customer traits and the items they are these customers buy. That is, instead of finding all the association rule reflecting the relationship, we just want to find a particular case. That is maybe a pair of customer who promote the sale of office software. Okay, so a meta rule can be used to specify this information in a form of rules. For example, suppose I consider P1 XY and P2 XW buys this software, office software, where P1 and P2 are the predicate variables, and that are related to the attribute. Then X is a varying representing the customer, and Y and W can take the value of the predicates P1 and P2. So we can specify something like a user will can specify the list of attribute to be considered for doing this or initiating this type of queries. Okay, so in general, a meta rule can be in a form of some hypothesis showing some relationship that the user is interesting in. Okay, so the data mining system can search for rules that match this particular meta rule instead of finding out everything. Now let's see how these meta rules can be used to guide the mining process. So for example, suppose we want to mine the interdimensional association rule, and it is in the example the meta rule is written of the form P1 and P2 and etc. say PL associated with Q1 and Q2 etc. QR, where this P1 or this PI, they represent PI where I is ranging from 1 to L, and QJ, say where J is ranging from 1 to R, are either the predicates or the predicate variable. Then so suppose the number of predicates in the predicate rule be P equal to L plus R. So in order to find the interdimensional association rule satisfying the template, we need to find all frequent P predicate sets LP, and also find the support or the count of the L predicate subset LP in order to compute the confidence of the rule derived from LP. Now we will see how this rule constraints can be used to make the mining process more efficient. So let us consider 4 tables given: sales, lives in, item and transaction, with the attributes given in the slide. And if you want to find or if you are interested in mining a query, find the sales of which cheaper items may promote the sale of which expensive item of the same group of customers in a town in 2004. The query can be expressed in a query language, in a data mining query language as given in the slide. So here in line number 1, the line number 1 is actually the knowledge type constraint, where the association patterns are to be discovered. Line 2 specifies a meta rule. So this is an abbreviated form of a meta rule, which is a hybrid dimensional association rule given in the slide. Data constraints are specified in the lives in portion of the meta rule in line 3. So they specify that only the fact table sales need to be explicitly referred. So in such a multi-dimensional database, variable references are simplified. And again, the level constraints are represented as given in the slide. The rule constraints include those portion of the that where and the having portion in the query. So and finally, the line 7 and 8 specify 2 interesting constraints namely the minimum support and the minimum confidence. Once the rule constraints are derived, how can we use these rule constraint to prune the search space? Or more specifically, what kind of rule constraints can be pushed deep into the mining process and still ensure that the completeness of the answer and still we can ensure the completeness of the answer returned for a mining query. So the rule constraints can be classified into 5 categories with respect to the frequent item set mining. They are anti-monotonic, monotonic, second, convertible and inconvertible. If an item set does not satisfy a rule constraint, then none of its superset can satisfy the constraint. So if a rule constraint obeys this property, it is called anti-monotonic. So pruning by anti-monotonic constraints can help or can be applied at each iteration of this a priori style algorithm to help improve the efficiency of the overall mining process. At the same time, it guarantees the completeness of the data mining task. If an item set satisfies a rule constraint, then all its supersets will also satisfy this rule constraint. So if a rule constraint obeys this property, then it is called monotonic. The third category is succinct constraint. For this category of constraints, we can enumerate all and only those sets that are guaranteed to satisfy the constraint. That is, if a rule constraint is succinct, we can directly generate precisely the set that satisfy it, even before support counting begins. Fourth category is a convertible constraint. So some constraints belong to none of the above 3 categories. However, if you add an item in an item set arranged in a particular order, the constraint may become monotonic or anti-monotonic with regard to the frequent item set mining process. For example, the item or the constraint average, say average price of a value if it is lesser than 100 equal to 100, it's neither monotonic or nor anti-monotonic. However, if we add an item in a transaction, or the items added in the transaction to the item set in the price increase in an ascending order of their price, the constraint will become monotonic, because if I add an item I, it violates the constraint. Then further addition of more expensive items into the item set will never make it satisfy the constraint. Similarly, if an items in a transaction are added to an item set in a descending order, it becomes monotonic. Because if the item set satisfy the if it satisfy the constraint, then then adding cheaper item into the item set will still make the average price maybe greater than 100. So some constraints we can convert to other, but all the constraints we can't convert like this. So there is a fifth category also, which are called inconvertible constraints. The table given here gives a general picture about common constraints and in which category they fall. The Venn diagram represents the classification of constraints. In this lecture, we identified that discovery of frequent patterns, associations and correlation relationship among huge amount of data is very useful. We saw the different methods to identify frequent item sets and how to generate association rules from that. We extend it to multi-level and multi-dimensional association rule, and we also considered constraint-based rule mining methods that allow users to focus the search for rules by using meta rules. And we also identified that these association rules, they should not be directly used for prediction without further analysis or domain knowledge. These are my references. Thank you.